Right, here's a good question that you need to know how to graph, and just on basic things. So your function is f of x is equal to negative x to the fourth minus 3x squared. So it's a fourth degree polynomial, so you know it's like that or like that. It's negative, so it must be like that one. This one will be positive x to the fourth. This is negative x to the fourth, so it has to look like that. Now we can be a bit more specific and figure out where the x-intercepts are and where the y-intercept is. So the y-intercept, since there's no number at the end here, the constant term, I know that it crosses the y-intercept at 0, or the y-axis at 0. So there's got to be some kind of crossing or balance. There's got to be something happening there. Now to find the other x-intercepts, I can take this and factor it. So I'll factor out maybe a negative and x squared. That's common. So that'll give me an x squared here and then plus 3. All right. So is that right? Yeah, that's right. So now I can look at use the zero property. So if I want to know where it crosses the x-axis, I want to know where the values of x are, where y is equal to 0. So to find the x-intercepts, plug a 0 in everywhere you see a y or an f of x. So I'm going to put a 0 over here to replace that, is equal to negative x squared times x squared plus 3. Then we'll use the 0 property. So this, I guess x squared I could rewrite as negative x times x squared plus 3. So one of those things has to be equal to 0. So either x is equal to 0 or x is equal to 0 or x squared plus 3 is equal to 0. So both of these they're done already. This one I can move the 3 to the other side and make it negative. And then when I take a square root of that, I get a plus or minus square root of negative 3. So these aren't real zeros. In other words, they would not cross the x-axis anywhere. Because there's a negative sign under the square root, it wouldn't cross the x-axis anywhere. So the only kind of thing that it could be would be a graph where at x equals 0, since there's a multiplicity of 2 here, the graph bounces at that point. So if I were to graph this, and it could look like a lot of different things, but these things, they could be a bounce or they could be a bend or something, but they would not indicate where it crosses the x-axis. So I know for sure multiplicity of 2 at 0 and it's upside down. So I could draw this graph like this, comes to 0 and then bounces and goes back. I could draw it something like this, bounce at 0. So these here would be these complex or imaginary zeros because they wouldn't cross the axis. I guess I could draw it like this too. I could come up and bounce and come down and do another kind of thing like that. But I could not take it and go above the axis down and then come and bounce. I couldn't do that because mathematically there's no x-intercepts there, so I can't cross there. All right, hopefully that helps you with that question.